John Mozeliak speaks about the state of the Cardinals and what the plan is moving forward towards the trade deadline. This is Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinals fans. I'm JD Haffern, and I'm a national radio sports anchor, born and raised in the Lou, and a lifetime Cardinals fan, and I'm your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can follow me on Twitter at JD Sports Radio, follow the podcast at LO_Cardinals. I want to thank those of you who make Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcast, as well as on YouTube. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. Hit the notification button so you know when new episodes are posted. This is a show serving Cardinal Nation and giving the best fans in baseball all of the info about the birds on the bat. The second half of the season begins tonight at Busch Stadium. And things are not all so rosy for the Cardinals right now, is it? The Cardinals are hosting the Nationals. Redbirds are here at the second half to begin it, 38-52, 14 games under 500, 11 and a half back in the NL Central, and 11 games back in the wild card. Is this season over? Technically, no. But in the reality, it's going to take an incredible run by the team, which, first off, they haven't proven they can do yet this year. And an incredible collapse by other teams like the Reds and the Brewers in the division, teams like the Giants, Phillies, Marlins, and Diamondbacks for the wild card to even be something they could sniff either. And the odds are really not in their favor. So the smart thing to do is to focus on 2024. Right? That's what we need to focus on now. And that's what President of Baseball Operations John Mozeliak acknowledged in a recent interview that he did with Martin Kilcoyne from Fox 2 in St. Louis. And something I really liked about this interview, because there was multiple things I enjoyed about it, was that Mozeliak finally admitted to the mistakes that were made, acknowledged them, took responsibility for them, and was just honest about where the team is at and what they plan to do at the deadline. And let's by admitting the obvious, let's start there. Admitting the obvious was that the plan just did not work. Well, the plan that they put in place this season has not worked. Mo says, when you look at how things have unfolded, I don't want to go through every little excuse we see. We know it hasn't worked. We know changes have to happen. The excuses have been something that many of us have complained about for a while. And I would say by about mid-May and certainly by June, we were all tired of hearing the same things over and over. Things like, there's a lot of baseball left, or let's just remain patient. We've had injuries in the outfield that's holding us back. We had too many guys at the WBC. We're adjusting to the pitch clock. We're still adjusting to the rules of the shift. Like, on and on, we heard this stuff. We got fed up with it. We could tell that the trajectory of this team was going in the wrong direction. We knew that. And I know it's Mo and Ollie's job to not freak out, to remain calm, to be that voice of reason when things aren't going great. But it was obvious early on that this team was in trouble. It really was. And if they didn't act quickly, the season was going to slip away. Well, nothing was really done. They shuffled a lot of people back and forth between Memphis and St. Louis. They didn't always play the guys that they brought up for Memphis. And the season has all but slipped away now. Mo continues in this interview saying that when you look at what we've put on paper, it should have worked better, but it didn't. The front office and ownership know we have to do something different. This is not the model we're going to follow. That's something we'll take a hard look at and try to address it, but changes will happen. And again, this is very refreshing to hear because we really just wanted to hear, at least I did, I wanted to hear Mo admit that the model they decided to follow was faulty and that changes needed to happen and will happen. Now, whether or not you believe him that these changes are going to happen, that's up to you, because we also heard the payroll was going up at the beginning of the season, and that didn't really come to fruition. Now we all look at this and say, has the model actually been kind of bad for a couple of years? And the reason why I say that is because if you remember, it took a couple of very miracle type of things to happen the last 2 years for this team to make the playoffs. You get the wild 17-game winning streak in 2021 that led you into the playoffs. And then last year, out of nowhere, You got the Albert Pujols magic that propelled them to the playoffs. Relying on things like that to continue to happen is unsustainable. And perhaps it blinded the front office a little bit at how good or how bad the model was and how good or bad the team really was moving forward. On the pitching issues and why they weren't more aggressive in the offseason about adding pitching, Mo said a couple of reasons. One, some of the pitchers we did chase just weren't able to get done. The other, we really wanted to give some of these guys an opportunity. When you're trying to give your internal guys that first shot, the hindsight is we probably should have had some depth to cover for it. Dakota Hudson was someone we penciled in for our rotation, and he's pitched almost the whole season in AAA. That's a problem. Liberatore is a guy we wanted to give a chance to pitch. He got optioned out in spring training and ultimately has pitched for us, but hasn't taken that next step to where we could count on him every fifth day. Now, part of this I am fine with. I am all for giving your guys the first crack at a job. I understand that. You've drafted them. You've developed them. You've had a commitment to them. You like them as people. You know them. You trust them. I get all that. But it also seems to be another case where they misjudge the level of talent in their own house. Similar to what they've done with the outfielders, in my opinion. You know, he sits there and says he was hoping for Hudson and Liberatore to make another step. I'm sure he had Jake Woodford in there as well. And they've done the same thing with outfielders like Tyler O'Neill and Dylan Carlson. They're kind of doing it with Alec Burleson right now. Juan Yepes. They wanted them to step up. And unfortunately, none of them have done that, whether it's due to injuries, consistent playing time, or maybe they're just not as good as you think they are, which takes me back to reevaluating how you're evaluating your talent in your system. Because for some reason, these guys are coming up and they're not panning out the way you think they are supposed to after doing pretty darn well in the minors. Why is that happening? So that's something that, if you're making changes to the model, something that probably needs to be adjusted. So what's going to happen next? That's the question all fans want answered. How are you going to fix this? Well, Mo gets into that and trades, and we're going to discuss all of it coming up next on Locked On Cardinals. If you want to win 100 times your money on daily fantasy baseball, then the Sleeper app is where you should be, okay? Here's why. Sleeper is a fantasy sports app, which is great, but it's also a real money gaming app focused on bringing people together through sports and gaming. It's not just about sports at Sleeper. It's about building personal connections and lasting memories. It's a community. Sleeper is now offering up to 100 times payout for up to 8-pick contests, and you choose as many as 8 players. Okay, you get up to that, and you more or less just kind of pick out your favorite stats. The stuff you are interested in, whether it's home runs, strikeouts, hits, stolen bases, things like that. Get your picks right, and you can win big, which is what we all want to do, right? Like, you don't want to win minimal. You want to hit the jackpot. On YouTube, you can see some of the screenshots that I've taken here to show you what it kind of looks like. They've got more stat categories to place contests on. They've got the built-in group chat functionality where you can see and copy your group's picks with the tap of the button. Entries are made in 30 seconds or less, so it's real quick. It's not going to take up a lot of your time. It's very simple. You get safe and fast withdrawals, currently operational in over 30 states. So odds are you're somewhere that you can use Sleeper, and you can make some money off of them. First-time depositors receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 using promo code Locked On. So swing for the fences with promo code Locked On and sign up, and you'll get a deposit match up to $100 with Sleeper. Give it a try today. The Cardinals are back on the field tonight against the Nationals at Busch Stadium, and you can catch every pitch of the Cardinals Hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Cardinals. Again, I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. Always feel free to leave comments on YouTube and on Twitter anytime you want. Always want your feedback. It's welcome and encouraged at all times. And for weeks now, my everydayers would know this, that we've been talking already about what trades can be made by Mo at the deadline this year, despite Mo never actually saying that that's what was going to happen. until now. And in this interview again with Martin Kilcoyne says to Mo, you said not waving the white flag yet. But your counterpart of the Blues, Doug Armstrong, at one point looked at the fan base and said, hey, it's not happening. We're going to trade Tarasenko, O'Reilly, Barbashev, big player names. Is there any value in your position where you could say, hey, folks, we're just going to have to be honest. If we have to trade people, we will. And Mo's response to this was, right now, I can tell you, we're going to trade people. You just don't know if it's going to be household names or guys who are more likely to not be here next year. It's easy to talk about what we may or may not do at the moment, but we're not going to just give away players. We want to get some value in return. We want to get some value that helps us in 2024. And that's really going to be our focus as we enter the trading period. Kilcoyne follows this up with asking, is anyone untradeable? Which I assume he's alluding to Goldie and Arenado. And most response was, I always hate that phrase because there's always something that would make you say, I would trade someone. I think the fact is, I hope we can keep our core together and supplement it properly. So my take from this is pretty much in line with what I've been saying for a couple of weeks now. And that's that Jack Flaherty and Jordan Montgomery are as good as gone unless they feel they aren't getting an adequate return. And if that's the case, then they can always shift and do what the Cubs did last year with Contreras and Ian Happ. They hang on to them, make a qualifying offer, which the player will almost always say no to, especially if they're in line to get like a big contract. And instead you get draft picks if they sign somewhere else. So you don't lose them. You're not empty-handed, but obviously trading gets you more in return than a draft pick. And the Cardinals are in a spot right now where it's not like they're on a 5-year rebuild and those draft picks are going to pay off later and they're looking forward to that. They want to fix this now. I'm still iffy on whether or not moving Jordan Hicks is a good move. I still say no. I'd really hate to lose him. I understand if he does get traded. If they don't plan on re-signing him, then yeah, go ahead. If you have no interest in bringing Jordan Hicks back, go ahead, trade him if that's where you're at. And if someone offers you a deal and you can't refuse it, send him packing. But I just don't know how not re-signing Jordan Hicks is good business. Okay, your bullpen clearly is a problem. For most of the year, Jordan Hicks has not been a problem. He had his issues early on in the season, but for the most part, you've liked him, and you've liked what you've seen out of him. So getting rid of him, I still don't like that idea, but I understand if it happens. As far as Goldie and Arenado, that trade speculation, I'd be shocked if either of them were asked to waive their no-trade clauses. I don't think that's going to happen. This, again, is not a fire sale. They aren't tearing this whole thing down and trying to start all over again. There are a lot of good pieces still on this team, but the collective group together over the last couple of years has not gotten it done. The job just has not gotten it done, and it's time to shake things up. So names like Tommy Edman, Paul DeYoung, Dylan Carlson, Tyler O'Neill, Chris Stratton, guys at Memphis like Lucan Baker and Juan Yepes and Moises Gomez all seem like trade possibilities for me that the team would be more than happy to discuss with any other team that would like to reach out and talk to them about these guys. Of those names, I think Tommy Edman is the least likely to get moved because he's got a lot of good things that you want to keep around. You know, he's a good guy, can play multiple positions, very versatile. He's under control until 2026, and he's not crazy expensive. And those are the exact reasons why another team would come in and say, we'd like to get Tommy Edman on our team. And if they offer you a decent package, you got to think about it. And you could also, another way to look at it is if you were to team up, say, a Jack Flaherty and a Tommy Edman, what kind of deal can you put together there? You make it a bigger deal, you know, and maybe your returns even more. I don't think Brendan Donovan or Lars Nootbaar are names that they would be shopping. They seem like guys they want to keep as part of the new core that they're building here to build around, you know, your pillars like Goldie, Arenado, and Contreras, along with Gorman, Jordan Walker, Mason Wynn next year. I mean, that's a pretty good group of guys if you have all of them together. You know, obviously, you're missing an outfielder there unless you're moving Brendan Donovan to the outfield, which is a possibility. I mean, he looked all right out there, but not a bad group to start with, right? And the rumor mill it's flying at warp speed right now on who the Cardinals might want in return, which teams are going to be interested in the guys that the Cardinals are putting up. So we're going to talk about some of those names next here on Locked On Cardinals. Looking your best this summer, but also staying cool and sweat-free. That should be the goal for most people. We know how it is. Humid and hot in St. Louis, and my friends at Bird Dogs have cracked the code at providing those exact needs for you this summer. I want to start with the comfort side of things. Bird Dogs stretch khaki shorts, fantastic. They're designed to fit slimmer, which is the better look for you. The baggy look is not really a thing anymore, but they do that slimmer fit through the thigh and the leg, give you a truly sculpted look, but they don't restrict and bind you the way that other brands like Lululemon does. They're not made of that stiff, restricting cotton that honestly just does not feel good. It's never felt good, and I'm so happy that people are catching on and that Bird Dogs came up with a product that moves with you. They use a cloud knit fabric that it looks just like khaki, but stretches to give you that slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. You're not worried about certain things getting locked together and getting all sweaty. Ooh, you know what I'm talking about. Sweaty spots in the summer, that's not an issue anymore. You don't have to worry about those embarrassing looking wet spots or the smell of the sweat on you because Bird Dogs use anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that'll keep you cool and keep you dry all day long. So they're great for golfing. It's where I use them the most. But they're also perfect for if you're just hanging out at the deck at the house or if you're by the pool, not jumping into the pool. You don't want to get all wet and stuff, but you want to be out there and hanging out, maybe barbecue or something. These are great. Heading to lunch or dinner, going shopping while you're on vacation, at amusement parks with the kids this summer. Of course, going to ball games. They're fantastic. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB. Enter the promo code LockedOnMLB for a free Yeti-style tumbler. They'll throw it in there with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB for a free Yeti-style tumbler. You won't want to take off your Bird Dogs. We promise you. The Cardinals are back in action at home tonight against the Washington Nationals, and you can catch every pitch of the Cardinals' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Cardinals. So what teams are going to be interested in what the Cardinals have to offer? Well, a lot of them, to be honest, because guys like Jordan Montgomery and Jack Flaherty are going to be pieces that people want. Jordan Hicks is going to be somebody people want. I listed all those other guys. People have needs going into the playoffs. It's a weird spot for the Cardinals. We haven't been here in a long, long time where we're selling instead of buying, but it's kind of refreshing and kind of fun to see, hey, so you need my guys now, huh? Let's see what you got. The Dodgers seem like a good fit for a bunch of guys, including like Paul DeYoung, as well as some outfield help. The Phillies and Giants are floating out there. We've seen the Yankees pushing for Arenado, which again, I just think is silly and wishful thinking on their part. I don't think that's going to happen. Derek Gould just released an article, and he talked about one of the Yankees' top pitchers in their organization. Clayton Beeter is his name, and Gould describes Beeter as a right-hander at the Yankees Class AAA affiliate. 83 strikeouts in 71 in the third innings. Appeared in this past weekend's Futures game, and a source described him as a fit. The Yankees are looking for an outfield boost and short-term pitching. The Cardinals have both of those. Let's swing a deal. We've got a rapport with them already from the Montgomery-Harrison Bader deal. Could they make the magic happen again? Could Jordan Montgomery get traded back to the Yankees? Could they end up with Montgomery anyway? Could happen. The Mariners. I see this. This pops up all the time. Seattle Mariners. Derek Gould mentions the Mariners in his article as well. But, they got a decent amount of young arms in their system, like Logan Gilbert and Brian Wu. Derek Gould specifically mentions Gilbert in his article, saying he is of interest, according to a source. And then Gould brings up a guy that I cannot get on board with this. Former Cardinal Lance Lynn, who is now with the White Sox. I think he's got value to somebody. If you're a playoff team looking for a veteran presence, somebody to be the back end of your rotation, you want to upgrade there, I think Lance Lynn is probably a good idea for you. I do not think it's a good idea for the Cardinals. I feel like that's just kind of doing the same thing they've done the last few years. but you're doing it with a more familiar name because he's been here before. But, you've seen the John Lesters come in and the Jay Haps and last year, Jose Quintana. And those moves did work, but you got to remember, you were trying to go into the playoffs then. You're not doing that now. Lance Lynn is 5-8 with an ERA over 6 on an underachieving White Sox team. I don't see why that's something you'd want to add to the problems you already have in your starting rotation. He has a club option for next year, but it's not like it's cheap. It's for $18 million. So you're kind of, if you were to make that move, you're moving on from Adam Wainwright, who retires, and then you're just sliding Lance Lynn in there. Kind of the same thing going on. Lance Lynn is younger, 36, but $18 million for a guy who might be on the very back end of his career. Is this the beginning of a real big slide for him? Just not something I'd want to try and go down. I don't want to go down that type of road again. I want better than that. Okay. And I realize someone has to fill these open holes in the rotation next year, but I want better. And if Dave Duncan and Tony La Russa were still sitting in that clubhouse, then sure. Maybe I'd go get a Lance Lynn and see if they can fix him up again. That's something the Cardinals were really good at back in the day. They sign an aging veteran, and then they would let Duncan and La Russa fix him. And it worked really, really well. They turned a lot of guys' careers around. But that is not who is in your dugout right now. It's not. They're not in the clubhouse. You have Dusty Blake and the rest of the crew. And I'm just not at a point with them yet where I trust them to do something like that because I haven't seen them do it yet. I haven't seen them fix anybody. If anything, people have gotten worse under their watch this year. So that's not something I'm willing to try. But again, we're just scratching the surface on all of this. The rumors, they're going to continue. And I'm going to be right here with you the entire time, giving you the latest updates, rumors, and info about all of them. So stay with me. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. Be sure to catch every pitch of the Cardinals' hometown broadcast for this weekend series against the Nationals with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Cardinals. Tonight, we got Miles Mikolas on the mound against Washington, who last time he faced the Nationals threw very, very well. That was June 21st. If you remember, it was the game before they left for London. It was an ugly, dreary day in Washington, and the offense absolutely no-show. Just cashed out early, and Mikolas threw well, 7 innings, allowed just 2 runs that day. But ultimately, I think they lost that game 3-0. No offense. So hopefully he can replicate that performance again tonight, because despite the season looking like it's over and we're trading everybody and there's nothing left to play for, I still want to see the Cardinals win. I still do. First pitch at 7:15 tonight, St. Louis time. If you haven't already, please give us a follow on Twitter at @LO_Cardinals and at JD Sports Radio. Like and subscribe on YouTube. You're the best fans in baseball for a reason, and I'll see you next time on Locked On Cardinals.